Welcome to Athletes to Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into various resources. More importantly, this podcast is all about athletes transitioning out of sport. It's such a major issue today between health and finance, financial literacy, and we interview former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their journey, their transition out of sport, ultimately into successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. So excited today to have Chris Izmirlian. How you doing, Chris?
Pretty good, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Chris played hockey at Yale, and then when he was finished playing hockey there, he was a professional hockey player at East Coast Hockey League. And then today he is the founder and CEO of Job Commander, which is a very exciting platform, and really looking forward to hearing more about that in a little while. So Chris, talk about playing sports growing up. How did that shape you leading up into college?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I actually born in Montreal, born in Canada. And I moved to Florida when I was really young. So my parents, they got married. I was the first of three kids in their family. And they basically decided that they wanted to leave Montreal as fast as possible. They were done with the cold. So they had one of three options. They said they're going to move to Florida, they're going to move to Texas, or they're surprisingly going to move to Las Vegas. I think thankfully for me, they moved to Florida. It worked out really well. So I actually grew up in Florida till I was about 13 years old. But as a ice hockey player in sunny South Florida, it's really hard to find ice. So growing up, it was really difficult to find ice, find teams, find talent, find coaching. It was not what it is today. Now with the Florida Panthers, as good as they are, you're starting to see more and more hockey players come out of South Florida, which we've, in my age group before me, after me, there's still some phenomenal ice hockey players that have come out. But now you're just seeing this new surge of players. So, but going back to my experience, it was really difficult to find the right coaching and teams around me and ice time. It's just so limited in South Florida. So for me, it was all about growing up with my parents. My parents were sort of my rocks. They were the ones that were always taking me to practice, early skates at 5 a.m. before school, practices after school. Hockey was pretty much our family's life. And it got to a certain point where hockey at a certain level in Florida, it sort of hits its peak and you have to go somewhere else. You have to go find the better competition, whether that's Canada, whether that's the Northeast, Minnesota, Michigan, somewhere out west. There's better talent out there. So for me, I knew I wanted to pursue it further. And my family and I, we decided that we would move the entire family to Connecticut. So I actually ended up going to a boarding school up there in Connecticut. Long story short, ended up from boarding school, played a year of junior hockey in Massachusetts, lived with a family, didn't go to school, so to speak, during that time. It was sort of my gap year, but then ended up getting recruited and going and getting an offer to play at Yale University. And so it's been a pretty amazing path, difficult. It's not because of anything that, obviously I'm a main part of it, but it's primarily because of the people, my family, my parents, my sisters, the ones that kind of helped motivate me to keep it going. But also they did sacrifice a lot for me to even be in this position that I am today.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because it is the case probably with a lot of families where you've got athletes and where the siblings kind of have to go along. It's funny, like in my family, my son, I coach him in all kinds of sports. Baseball, ultimately baseball was the big sport, but just my daughter would kind of go one way with my wife with her dance, and my son would go the other way with me with the sports. So and it's definitely a commitment from the family to do that. Let's talk about, so when you went to Yale, the thing we talk about is athletes transition out of sport. Was there education there, and not just like a one-day class or a one-day workshop, but just something that prepared you and the other athletes for life after sports?
So yes and no. I would say that the people that I learned the most from were my teammates. Those that were above me, classes before me, they were really the ones that sort of, I observed them. I saw some of the things that they were going through with finding internships, finding jobs after college, whatever it was. They were kind of the ones that I'm like, I watched, I tried to figure out what they were kind of doing, what was working, what was not working. I mean, the ice hockey team at Yale is so close knit. I mean, I still see all my classmates at least once a year. I still see a lot of the other classmates as well. So we really have a nice community. And I will say there's also a really good, when you become an athlete at Yale, you kind of fit into this little bubble. So when I see other people who are either former athletes at Yale or they're currently there, you just already have that immediate connection. And it even goes one step further, right? When you think about the Ivy League schools, that's sort of another connection point. And then you just think more broadly about just being an athlete. We get things a little bit different. We understand things a little bit different just from early morning practices and late games and travel and trying to juggle being a college kid while also being an athlete, while also like trying to go to school and keeping your grades up. I mean, my wife she also was a former athlete, Division I athlete. So it's one of those things where we just have a little bit of a different language. We understand things a little bit differently, which is totally fine, just kind of how we've been brought up. So it's always something that I always look back on and saying, well, the school prepares you for one thing, but I really think like my teammates, my classmates, those are the ones that actually kind of prepared me for next phase of life.
Okay, so yeah, I guess so. It's more. So it was like it was the experience, but it was the people around, not necessarily school, and that makes sense. And I think some schools are getting a little bit better, but there's a long way that needs to go. Especially, I think when you're playing the sport, obviously the schools, all into and making sure you're doing the things, but then when you become an alumni, sometimes that's a different case, because then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, you're not in our program anymore. And so like we have talked about at Alumni Directive, just kind of going into schools with resource partners and setting up additional curriculum to help out. I remember one of my previous podcasts, the guy had said that he just really wishes he would have had, like a 6-week or mandatory class or workshop or something that would have helped him ultimately in the transition out of sports. So it is definitely a big deal. And one other thing I was thinking as we're going through this, and you're talking about Yale, one of the last previous guest I had played football at Harvard. So it's also interesting to hear the perspectives of the Ivy League schools and how they handle their sports. So let's talk about networking, connecting, and talk about the importance of doing, especially while you're still playing.
Yeah. So I think, as I mentioned before, I mean, the people that I learned the most from were my former teammates, people that graduated before me, led me a class above me. Those are the ones that you actually kind of almost like big brothers, big sisters. They kind of show you the path and you learn from them. I mean, networking is kind of everything, right? It's unfortunately, fortunately, however you want to look at it, it's kind of the way that people can get to some next phase of their life, wherever they're looking for. Who you know and how you operate with people is really an important facet of life, whether it's job hunting, whether it's next step of your own career. People can help you and open doors for you. Of course, you still have to take those doors and make sure that it's something that you actually can be successful in. But it is one of those things that it can definitely help you get to some level at some stage if you're looking for that.
Now, was the one thing I come across a lot is that when you're talking about networking, connecting, sometimes it seems to be like within a particular sports, it's almost like you kind of hang with your fellow athletes of sport. I mean, you talked before about some of the the older players helping out. When you were at Yale, was there any kind of interaction between the other teams? So you had the hockey players talking to baseball and basketball and so forth.
Absolutely. We actually, it's funny. We have some teams that we were closer to than others. The ice hockey team at Yale was very close with the lacrosse team, pretty close with the football team. Obviously, on the female side, there was a lot of other sports teams. We'd have mixers and have other things that we sort of interact with each other. But I will say the one thing that I appreciated the most about school was that we always had other athletes in other sports that just, if they weren't in season, they'd be supporting each other in other sports. So that's going to volleyball games, basketball games. Even when we had an off weekend, we'd be going to the women's ice hockey team. Some of my best friends now outside of the team are also athletes on other sports. So it's like we build that own network, that own community of people that we all know generally. We all go through the same things, coaches being this and training is hard and school is this and another thing. So we all kind of go through similar struggles, but it also kind of binds us together, which in a way is really nice.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I talk about, I do a monthly networking event for my podcast guests, and it's really cool for me to see all the different sports because I've had a Major League Baseball player, NFL players, hockey players, like soccer, handball, but you talked a lot about just these different sports, and there's a similar mindset, similar DNA, or different sport, but you grew up and you started playing when you're pretty young, and then just everything that goes about being an athlete. And I think there's definite value there. So just to see them when they interact with each other, like, okay, we're all athletes. Let's roll up the sleeves. I was a runner myself. I ran in high school, college, a distance runner. So just seeing people come together and interact and help each other is pretty cool.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll add too is obviously, I'm sure we'll talk about some of my professional hockey days. But when you're at Yale, you're kind of like at the Yale bubble. Everyone else is an enemy, right? Harvard was the enemy. But then, you get to another level of playing, and you actually start interacting with other teammates who went to these other schools that you competed hard against. And, you realize they're just like you. It just happened to be different colors and different jerseys and logos and all that stuff, which is why you were battling on the ice. And, if I saw somebody who went to Harvard, an example, just because of the rivalry in school, it would not happen. You would not do that. You'd not see them. You kind of, we could chirp each other. You do whatever. But then I actually played with a few Harvard guys in post college career. They're awesome people, right? It's just about the jersey that you wear at the time, and your rivalry and your loyalty to your team and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, that's great. You're right. I mean, you kind of put it aside, especially for anybody. Like once you're out of your college years, you're networking, connecting, and even back to the earlier years, because I talk about and kind of recommend, and you were talking about going to boarding school and a lot, but like even at a high school age, I think you've got your friends, their parents, you just never know who people are. And I always talk about networking, say just have that kind of pay it forward attitude, and just like you want to help and however you can help. And ultimately, I think it's going to come back your way, but don't be afraid to, utilize those relationships that you have. And a lot of people talk about too, is they might have been friends from high school and, 10, 15 years later, they're doing business together. You just never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And networking is hard, right? It's sometimes for some people, especially if you think about myself, like I'm a pretty introverted person to begin with. Going to a networking event that I don't know anybody is a very difficult thing for me to do. But it's also something that I understand the importance of, because connecting with people is kind of how things get done. It's people to people usually when it comes to business. So you want to make sure that you're at least putting yourself out there. You're trying to meet new people. Even if it doesn't work out and nothing comes from it, at least you sort of get outside of your shell a little bit.
That's great advice there to do that. So let's talk about alumni engagement. And again, when you're talking, I know through experience, when you're talking to Ivy League, it might have a little more power. You talk about the Ivy League schools, you talk about fraternities, sororities, athletes, networking, connecting. So was Yale bringing back athletes across different sports to kind of not only just for like golf tournaments or homecoming games, but more so to kind of interact with the other athletes that are there?
They absolutely do. I think every sport at Yale has at least some sort of alumni weekend around the season that the sport is, which also means that there's other athletes coming around during the other seasons as well. One thing that's big, I've actually never been to a game, which is sort of, I'm a little ashamed to say, but the Yale Harvard football game every year, they switch between Yale hosting and Harvard hosting every other year. I've never been, but everyone that I know goes to it or has been to it. It just never worked out for me timing wise. But that's something that, people do still feel connected to the school. They feel connected to the rivalry game. But when you think about people going to campus, onto campus, seeing the teams, like I've done this before. Well, I'll go back to the school. I don't know anyone on the team anymore, but I'll go into the old hockey house and I'll walk in, like they'll welcome me. It's just kind of and I did the same thing when I was there with people that I didn't know who were 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years above me as a class. So it's, you have that brotherhood, that friendship, that relationship, that connection as all being athletes together at the same school, which of course just, continuously builds good networks as well.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to put it on your bucket list to go to the Harvard Yale game. And then I guess what you want to do too is go with your buddies that you played professionally with that went to Harvard, and you kind of see how that whole interaction goes down.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see. Hopefully there's no rumbles in the parking lot beforehand, but hopefully that
Yeah.
keeps it
So
all calm.
are they going to have their Harvard guys back, or your buddies? So you guys got each other.
I think so. I think that that's probably a safe way to go about doing it.
Yeah, I always joke around and just say, like, if I'm ever, people talk about if you're ever in a fight, like, if you're at a bar or something like that, you want to have a hockey player by your side.
Yeah, that's yeah, definitely got some pretty tough friends that you want on your side.
Yeah, no doubt. So I don't know if you had a chance to watch or listen to any of the episodes. So if you haven't, then these questions will come. They're not hard questions, but we're going to say if you can go back in time, we're going to do a little back to the future action. You get in a DeLorean, you go back to your days at Yale. What advice, 10 words or less, would you give to freshman Chris?
That's really good. Expand your network beyond your immediate people. The one thing that I noticed, especially my senior year is when I actually started to expand my network of people through a variety of different clubs and societies and other things that I was involved with, people that I would normally have never met before. I wish that I could have done that my freshman year as opposed to my senior year. Doesn't mean I didn't have I had a fantastic experience all 4 years. I definitely felt like my freshman to junior year, I was pretty close to the hockey team and only the team. Whereas senior year, still close to the hockey team, but then went one, two, three layers beyond that and really started to meet some awesome people that I still, am good friends with today. Wish I'd done that a little bit sooner. My advice would be, try to expand your network as fast as possible and try to get everything you can from your college, right? You're only there for 4 years and it does go fast. Calling from someone who's been graduated for probably 7, 8 years now, it goes really fast. It's some of the best time of your life, but make sure you get the most out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what advice would you give to senior Chris? 10 words or less.
Soak everything up as you can. I mean, you only have so much time. Again, going back to try to get as much as you can from the school and give as much as you can in return, right? There's only so much time you have left, and it life is difficult, and it's very different than being in college and experiencing that, being with people all the time, and you'll see the relationships that you build. Hopefully a lot of them stay with you past college. So, try to do as much as you can with the time you have.
That's great. Now, the last couple of episodes, I've been kind of getting that answer. Just really soak it in, enjoy the moment. You just got a whole life ahead of you, but just enjoy that time while you're in college, and especially, I guess, when you talk to people that are out of season. So I guess I guess if you're playing a spring sport, I don't know if you like enjoy the front half of the year. I mean, I guess once your sport's over, like if you're playing fall or winter, then it's you got that spring semester where you can kind of reflect back and really enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we in the hockey, it's obviously a winter sport. We had, I think, 2 weeks off after the season in the spring. So hopefully you try to play as much as you can for the season. You try to go as deep as you can as a run. You get 2 weeks and then you're kind of back to training. So a little bit different because we're just sort of smack down in the middle of school year. So front end is all training. You got to be really careful with how, you interact with other students and what's going on outside with parties and all that stuff. Ultimately, you do get some break. So take advantage of your break too.
It was it different for your senior, or you're still playing it all the way through the spring, even if you're a senior?
So when you're a senior, when your season is done, technically you're not on the team anymore. You're not actually, you don't have to go to the training. Of course, I'm sure if you wanted to go do the training stuff, you could, but you're not required to do the spring training or the off-season stuff. Now, some of my classmates, myself included, ended up playing professionally afterwards. So you of course can enjoy those last couple months of being in college and enjoying all that it has to offer. But ultimately you have to remember, like, if you're going to start trying to pursue this where somebody or an entity is paying you, you probably want to take care of your body, take care of things, make sure you keep your grades up and graduate. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure you still graduate, even though the season is done. You still have 3 months left of school year. Make sure you get your diploma, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you could party a little bit, but just keep it to a minimum because you still got to go to the next thing. It's a good segue into let's talk about you've had basically two transitions out of sport in a sense. Well, you had the transition from college to professional and then professional out. So talk a little bit about first when you transfer, going from playing college hockey to professional.
Yeah, so I didn't know if I wanted to play after college. When I was going in my senior year, I actually had a job offer from a junior year internship in New York City. I worked at Citibank in New York City. I had a risk management internship that ended up becoming a sales and trading full-time job offer for when I graduated. So when I went into school my senior year, feeling great, right? I don't have to get a job. I don't have to worry about anything. I can enjoy my senior year of hockey. But then when the last game happened, I took a couple of days, a week or so, and I realized I still kind of had that itch to play. So I was very fortunate where I was actually able to go to the people at Citi and say, hey, can I defer my offer a year? I'd like to go try to pursue this hockey thing. They were very nice about it. And they said, yeah, no problem. We'll defer it a year. So deferred it a year, played a year of hockey, tried to do it again, defer another year. They were like, okay, sure, I guess, no problem. So they did it again. Tried to do it the third time. They were like, listen, come or don't. Like, we don't have time for this. And at the time, I didn't want to be doing that. I didn't want to be in New York City. I didn't want to be living that life. Just didn't feel like it was for me. So that's why I ended up playing a third year of hockey. So yeah, that was kind of the weird transition where I kind of was doing it, but then I figured I wanted to play some more. And quite frankly, I wish I could still be doing it, but can't anymore. But yeah, it was just a little bit of a different transition where I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, but then went all in on hockey and deferred everything and then kept going back and forth. But it ended up working out and I don't have any complaints.
Oh, good. And then talk about now you played hockey your whole life and now you transition out of that to go in and start this company. So how was your transition out of sports?
Yeah, that was a really difficult transition for me for a few different reasons. One, the reason I wasn't playing anymore, I'm not playing anymore, is because I had too many concussions. My last game, I got concussed again, really bad injury. Haven't played since. Can't play. It's not really in the cards for me. Still have, symptoms and things like that from the concussion, which was now 6 years ago, more than 6 years ago. So it's one of those things where that was a very quick and abrupt end to me and for me, right? You get knocked out of the game. That was my fifth concussion at the time. This one was pretty bad. So I had a little bit of a different sort of ending to my career than knowing that it was going to end. I didn't know it was going to end going into that day. So that transition was pretty difficult from all I was doing for 25 years, 23 years was hockey. That's all I was doing. That's all I was watching, all I was thinking about, training, skating, all that stuff. So for it to kind of abruptly end like that and have the way it ended was pretty difficult for me, physically, mentally, emotionally, all that stuff. But that said, it's now where I am today in building Job Commander, right? It's one of those things where I'm happy to talk more about that. I understand that it was a really difficult time for me looking back, but it kind of put me where I'm supposed to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does, and that's a great way to look at it. So what advice do you have? Some words of advice to athletes that are transitioning out of their sport?
Yeah, I think kind of how the realization that I came to was you're exactly where you're supposed to be, right? I'm a firm believer in that. Of course, there's you can make your own luck and change your own destiny, like all those sport things that you kind of hear. I do firmly believe that you are exactly where you're supposed to be in life. So it may be difficult at the time when something of transition happens, whether it's a surprise or it's expected transition, but know that you are exactly where you're supposed to be in life.
That's great. One of the, as I always call them, the nuggets. So that was good. So now you got done with that, and basically you started your company, Job Commander. And talk about how your sports prepared you for entrepreneurship and that next battle, so to speak, of starting a company.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult and it's all about who you kind of surround yourself with, right? Like this is a company that I've built with it's a family run business. I built it with my parents. It all germinated from a concept that I've had for a long time. Basically, how difficult the hiring process is for both job seekers and people looking to hire, whether it's recruiters, job posters, employers. It's really difficult to hire the right person. I kind of joke that, a first round interview is kind of like a first date where, you don't know me too well. I don't know you too well. We're trying to feel each other out. But at the same time, I may be trying to present myself as better than I actually am, or I might be trying to hide some of my flaws because I want to impress you, right? Like this is a first date. But at the same time, when it comes to jobs, this is people's livelihood on the line, right? They want jobs, they need jobs, they want to transition to another employment opportunity, whatever it is. This is something that has been a challenge for a long time and it hasn't gotten any easier and there hasn't really been a solution behind it. So going back to me and sort of thinking about entrepreneurship, like it is a challenge. Every day there's a different type of challenge. You're fixing some other problem. I do think that surrounding yourself with the right team is really important. I have a bias. I came from a team sport. I understand the importance of having and relying on my teammates to do what I hope and would hold them accountable to do the same way that they would hold me accountable to do something. So it's challenging. There's no other way to say it. It's difficult, but it's something that's extremely rewarding, especially if you believe in what you're putting together.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, we talk about sports preparing for you. That I mean, just everything that we've talked about that you go through, and just the practice, the preparation, the leadership, everything that's part of being an athlete. translates into that next step and doing something like an entrepreneurship. So before we get into Job Commander in a minute, but maybe talk a little bit about in advice to the athletes from a perspective, since you're in this space. Jobs, people want to hire athletes. So talk a little bit about that, maybe from your own perspective, as well as just in general, knowing that industry.
Yeah, so I will say being an athlete comes with its rewards for sure. It's also really difficult to quantify on a resume you being an athlete, right? You do have a lot of soft skills, tangible skills that are really hard to reflect on a resume, which is kind of the end all be all when it comes to applications currently, right? So it's one of those situations where how do you keep up with your sport? How do you build your resume when it comes to like actual like employment experience opportunities and put that as your under your CV? How do you build that, right? It's you devote so much time to your sport. You devote so much time to your training. You don't have time to also get another job or an internship or something else, which would essentially build up your resume. But there's a lot of skills that athletes have that a lot of employers are looking for. So it's those soft skills, right? It's the teamwork, it's the camaraderie, it's the hard work, it's the determination, it's all the language characteristics you want to use. But how do you quantify that? How do you put that on a resume? For me, the way I actually got my opportunity at Citibank was actually through networking. It was through somebody that I knew in high school, connected me with somebody else, did the interview. The person actually liked that I was an athlete. They liked my leadership ability that's something that they wanted. I didn't have the resume that stacked up against some of the other applicants, but it was networking and it was the sport that actually propelled me to thankfully get that opportunity to then showcase myself and prove myself as being the right hire.
No, that's great. I think people should really tune into that, and we encourage athletes. I talked about this one guy was telling me how career service said, "Oh, your resume is not that good," and I said, "Well, your resume is really good because you're an athlete. Your athlete is the resume, and you hit on it because you just don't have, unfortunately, the time to be able to do the internships, depending what the sport is and all that, and where you're at, where you go to school. But still, it's difficult. I think it is important. People do want to hire athletes. Let's talk about a Job Commander. Tell us all about it and some of the great things that you're doing.
Yeah. So the simplest way I like to describe Job Commander is that we're a compatibility hiring platform. So think of any dating site, any Match.com, any eHarmony, whatever dating site sort of comes to mind. We essentially match job seekers to employment opportunities based on more than just a resume, right? And I'll ask, before I get into it, Rob, I'll ask you a question. I'll be the one asking the questions this time. How long do you think somebody looks at a resume before they make a decision?
It's one of those trick questions. So I'm probably going to say maybe like, I don't know, like a minute.
It's 3 to 6 seconds. So on average, it takes 3 to 6 seconds for somebody to make a decision on a resume, whether they want to move forward with an interview or the next stage, or they want to discard the resume. I saw that statistic and that was mind numbing to me, but I've also been there. I've also hired interns. I've hired people in the past, and I do the same thing. It's just kind of human nature. When you have a stack of 100 resumes, you don't have time to actually look through every one of them in detail. You look at some keywords, you look at some, characteristics. If athlete is one of them that you care about, that would be something you'd be looking for. And you essentially are trying to separate the pile somehow. But that's not a fair representation of who the person is as a person, right? It's really hard to put your whole life on a single sheet of paper resume. So what Job Commander does is we actually take that resume, we take who you are. That's important. Those are the hard skills, especially. But we actually also take a look into your soft skills. So how our system works is that we ask both the job seeker and the poster, the job poster, the recruiter, the hiring manager, a series of compatibility questions. So these are questions that don't have any right or wrong answer. You can't go back and change your answer, and no one ever sees your answer. So think of it as kind of like a baseline personality test that we're actually trying to get to the root of who you are as a person and trying to find you the right cultural fit on top of the right technical fit as well. As we're doing that with job seekers, we're doing it with job posters on the other side. So the same way that we ask compatibility questions to job seekers, we're asking job posters this similar types of questions. So they're looking for a job description. It's really hard to judge a company by a job description. But what we do is that we take that description, we take your personality-based questions for what you're looking for that particular role, and we match you up based on all of those different skill sets and those traits that are beyond a resume and beyond an application or beyond a job description. Once you find those matches, which our system is always calculating new people all the time, the system is always changing. If you match with an employment opportunity, you know you are very closely aligned with what that person is looking for that position, and vice versa. That's the key, is that we're not a one-to-one. We're not just a mass application platform. We really want to get people the right employment opportunities so that everyone is heard, everyone is seen. Another big thing is ghosting, right? That's a big thing that people are talking about now, where because you have 100, 200, 1,000 applicants for every job, people are not even hearing a response. They don't even know where they stand. Where we stand is that every person on our platform gets a response, even if the answer is no, even if it's, we don't want to hire you. I always say this, and some people will laugh, some people don't really like it, but I would rather know that the answer is no than not know, right? Tell me that I didn't get it so I can at least close that part of it, and then I can move on to the next opportunity. So that's a gist of what Job Commander is. We're a compatibility platform. We're trying to match the right job seeker with the right employment opportunity and vice versa, so that everyone finds the right fit that's for them.
Okay. No, that's great. I was talking to somebody today. It came up in conversation how she applied for a job and nothing ever happened. And when she was talking to the guy that she knew at that company, he was going to put a reference, but he didn't have enough time to do it before AI just basically, tossed her resume. I guess that's another battle right there.
That is a new battle, right? In the last, call it 4 or 5 years, AI has obviously taken a major hold of the recruiting industry. There's a lot of great things that come from it. There's a lot of not so great things that come from it as well. The challenge is that AI doesn't know the people really well, the same way that like us having a conversation, like we can get a good feel for each other if we were in the hiring process. But we need to get people talking. We need to get people connected without feeling like they never hear back, like the person you talked to the other day. They need to get a response back, whether it's no or it's let's talk some more. They need some dignified response.
Okay. And how does it work with who you're targeting? I mean, are you going after the mass consumer, or or trying to get in with, like, say, schools or companies? How does that work?
Yeah, so definitely the consumer. Schools are important, but they also have different mechanisms of hiring. Really, what we care about is we call it our target market. Our target market is typically those coming out of college, those that are emerging talent leaders, so those that you would see as being like the next level beyond entry level positions. The platform, Job Commander as a whole, works for any type of service, any type of, because it's customizable depending on what type of person you are or job you're hiring for. But the strength that we find is, me being a student athlete, this has stemmed from a lot of my experience of how do we make the system better for people like me or people who have experienced things like me. And student athletes is one subset of people that obviously I'm very passionate about helping, but there's a lot of other people that could benefit from something like this, where it's really streamlined, easy, efficient way of posting your application, posting your profile, getting matched with opportunities that actually fit what you're looking for, as opposed to the mindless, one-click applies that are all over the place now on every job posting site.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. People should definitely find Job Commander. How can they find you?
So easiest way, you go to jobcommander.com. I'm sure you'll put it somewhere for the spelling, or you can email me at chris@jobcommander.com. Really easy. Just, send me an email. Happy to connect with anybody, talk about the platform, show anything going on. I share any advice, really. There's no issue either way. But yeah, that would be the easiest way, is go to the website or email me directly.
Okay, that sounds great. And you could find us at alumnidirect.com. If you go to our YouTube channel, that's where you can watch the podcast. Also, you can listen across all the different networks, Apple and Spotify. And this is something that's just so important. I mean, it's a big issue today, like we started with talking about athletes transition out of sport. And we really want to make an impact. And so every week, and, this is the same thing again, just great advice from Chris and the nuggets as I talk about. Again, this has been wonderful, Chris. We appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure.